I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
Welcome to the We Are Actuaries podcast, where you'll meet leaders who use their actuarial powers to solve a range of problems and make a real difference. I am your host, Julia Lessing, and I'm a qualified actuary based in Australia. I help actuaries develop communication and leadership skills to build great actuarial careers. So settle in, learn from the best, and be inspired. Today we're talking about a topic that can supercharge your career. It's volunteering. Now, I'm a huge advocate of volunteering, not just because it makes you feel good, but I think volunteering can really help build your actuarial career. Volunteering can help you build your network, it can help you build your skills, and it can also help you take on challenges that might not be available to you at work. Joining us for this discussion is Adam Barrow. Adam was awarded the 2025 Young Volunteer Achievement Award by the Actuaries Institute. He began his volunteer service even before achieving fellowship in 2022, and he volunteers for the profession in a range of ways, including education activities and contributing to practice committees. Adam's here today to share what he's learnt from his volunteering experience and how volunteering could help your career. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Julia, and appreciate the appreciation for the award. So it came as a bit of a shock to me.
Did it?
Yeah, it was something that I was really grateful to receive. I was playing phone tag with the president for a little while, wondering why she was calling me directly. But yeah, when I finally got on the phone with her, it was very, very humbled to receive the award.
Well, congratulations for the award. It was very well deserved. And I was surprised. I mean, I knew how much volunteering you've been doing, but I hadn't realised that you'd started volunteering before you were actually qualified. You know, most of us wait until we finished our studies to start volunteering. So I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about your story and your reflections about volunteering in today's interview, Adam. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you the question I ask all my guests, and it's this. Adam, how do you use your actuarial superpowers to make a difference in the world?
Thanks, Julia. Well, I work in the superannuation field. So as a product actuary, as a tagline, I've very much focused on improving member outcomes in superannuation and retirement. But beyond the actuarial technical work, I found that my actuarial skill set, structured thinking, data-driven decision making, and a deep understanding of things, all things financial, it means that actuaries are really well placed in the data-centric world to bring that data piece to reality. So it'd be no surprise that actuaries are very well placed to understand complexities, but beyond knowing how to solve the issue, something that's really key for me is about understanding and translating it into easy to understand language, particularly in the field where I work in superannuation, where you're trying to communicate with members who aren't actuaries. My CEO, who isn't also an actuary, puts it really well. It's all about making the complex simple, but also the simple compelling. Mm-hmm. So the way that I use my actuarial superpower is as a tool for advocacy and education. So beyond my day job, I also, as you've mentioned, do volunteer on a various list of committees, going through almost the alphabet soup of SIPC, Superannuation Investment Practice Committee. I'm the chair of the Member Services Subcommittee, and I'm also an SME for superannuation on the Life Insurance and Education faculty. And through these various roles, I've contributed to and helped other actuaries broadcast their thought leadership and educational initiatives that are very much focused on demystifying the complex issues for both actuaries and the public. So whether it's writing about proposed legislation changes or helping shape the next generation's understanding of retirement products, I see actuarial work as a way to make the financial system more understandable and transparent.
Wow, what a great way of using your superpowers, Adam. And I love that, making the complex simple and the simple compelling. I think that's one of the challenges that we have as actuaries is that our work is complex and superannuation is very complex. So being able to translate that into terms that everyone can understand, because superannuation affects all of us, we all have it. I think that's a really cool superpower.
Thanks, Julie.
So superpowers aside, let's talk more about volunteering. And I was, as I said earlier, I was amazed to hear that you have been volunteering since before you even attained fellowship. So I'd love to hear what you think is the best point in your career to get involved in volunteering and why.
So you've probably given it away a little bit with going back to when I commenced my volunteer journey back in 2022 prior to qualifying. And my answer to the question is you're never too junior to volunteer. So I very much fell into volunteering as a bit of an outworking of working quite closely with the director at my former job in consulting. And it was very much pitched to me as a one-off, would you like to help with the newsletter and come along to a practice committee meeting? So this one-off task led to an invitation to attend ongoing SIPC meetings, and they were quite happy with my kind of project managing of the newsletter, that they wanted me to basically come on board as a permanent volunteer for the SIPC.
Great.
Something that really stuck with me, though, in terms of volunteering as a junior, was how appreciative everyone was. I'll be honest, I was quite critical of my contribution to the practice committee. I kind of saw it as being quite minor, kind of working with various people to pull together a newsletter. But that wasn't how it was perceived, which was great. So I think the key message there is that volunteering, particularly in the actuarial field, doesn't always have to be about technical brilliance. It's about showing up and being generous with your time. And being surrounded by experienced actuaries at those meetings taught me more than any textbook could. I think that's why I was quite fortunate to get through my fellowship subjects the first time through. So a big testament to those actuaries that have kind of paid it back to me and helped me to understand the complexities of superannuation, which we know is not only complex but also ever changing. So
ever changing, yeah, always evolving. That's so interesting, because I think often we think that volunteering is we have to be contributing some value. We need to be a certain level of seniority. We need to have learned a certain amount so that we can actually contribute. But what you're saying is that you don't really need that. You just need to show up and to be generous with your time. I love the way you've described that, because I think that gives us permission to volunteer when those opportunities come up without having to feel like we're not ready or we have to wait until longer. Because it also sounds like it was quite a valuable experience for you by being surrounded by those more experienced actuaries. You then learnt from them by, you show up and you be generous and you're contributing in, a different kind of role. But then you're also learning from that too. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about volunteering is that usually you get back more than you contribute. We think about it as a thing that we just do, we give, but really I think we get a lot out of it too.
Yeah, and I'll probably double down on suggesting that people get involved earlier on in their career, because it's astounding. It's very different to a workplace. I think volunteering and being part of those committees, particularly when there are very complex topics that you might be learning about for the first time, it's a great environment. It's very safe to fail. So I think that's what I learned pretty quickly, is that if I have questions, they're very happy to answer them. There's no strict deadlines for certain things. There's no expectation that you're an SME in any kind of field. It's about really everyone coming together to improve the profession that is actuaries. So it was great. It was a great learning experience because I felt like I could ask the silly questions, although I'm a big proponent of there's no such thing as a silly question. Only one that isn't asked. But I definitely think it's very underestimated and underappreciated that these kind of committees, they don't function like a workplace. It's a very very different kind of environment and different way of interacting with actuaries beyond your traditional manager structures. So.
Different how?
I think you quickly learn that everyone else that's volunteering, you do have a bit of a selection effect. So the people that are volunteering are the people that want to advance the profession and generally have matching personalities. So I think that's something I've maybe a bit biased because I've been quite involved in the superannuation. I'm sure a lot of the other committees like life insurance and general insurance have equally incredible people. But I think the personalities I've very much gelled with them. It's incredible that people are so, I've talked about being generous with my time for volunteering, but it's the reciprocal generosity that some of these very experienced actuaries, they are volunteering for a reason. They do get a lot out of it. I can imagine, professionally and from a networking perspective, but at the same time, it is invaluable mentorship that you can get from it. So
great opportunity and win-win by the sounds of it.
yeah,
Okay, so you're never too junior to volunteer. You just show up and be generous and enjoy the ride. So that's great advice. Adam, how's volunteering helped you build your professional network?
Yeah, I think it's given me a platform to meet people who are, let's say, like-minded. So I think I'm someone that does quite enjoy volunteering. But beyond, the actual output that you produce from volunteering as well too, I think, my favorite thing has been the people and the networking aspect of it. So I've already touched on that a lot of the members that are volunteering tend to be more altruistic, thoughtful, generous with their time. But it is very much a pleasant outworking, being able to network with these types of people. Things like conferences and events that might feel, a bit daunting if you're going in blind, they now feel like a bit of a reunion with so many familiar faces. So I think starting in a few different areas has and volunteering a few different areas has helped me build an initial network, and then from there you can kind of go to some of your more traditional ways of networking. I think it is important to remember, though, that networking can be what you make it. There's no kind of one size fits all for everyone. So for me, I tend to do better in one-on-one discussions. I love catching up with people over a coffee. I feel like I can very much talk the roof of a house when it's just the two of us. However, in large group situations, it might not be surprising to a lot of people, but it's a place where I typically let other people dominate conversations. I think I'll kind of skirt around the edges, and I think if I find a good topic that I can jump into, maybe that's kind of my jumping off point. But yeah, I think I'm just such a big fan of one-on-one conversations, because you get to learn so much more about the person, the individual. So I've kind of use that in two ways. So volunteering, typically it has been smaller groups, so it's been an opportunity to kind of build relationships with people. But then for me, my preferred way is one-on-one. So always trying to catch up with various people for coffees, learn about their experiences, learn about what they've got to say about the profession, and more broadly who they are as people.
Yeah, great. So okay, so you're more comfortable with a one-on-one conversation. I can relate to that too. And a big group can feel quite daunting. If you're coming in really as a junior person, and perhaps the most junior person to a practice committee, and you're surrounded by a lot of very experienced actuaries, I mean, was that a daunting experience for you, or how did you kind of overcome that sort of, or reconcile, I guess, that sort of situation with your preference?
Hi, I'm Bill Morella, CEO of Actex Learning, and I'm excited to introduce our latest publication, Aspiring Actuarial Leaders, The Modern Manager's Toolkit by Julia Lessing, a qualified actuary and executive coach with over 20 years of experience. This book is packed with practical strategies, real-world insights, and expert guidance to help you navigate the challenges of modern management. Whether you're a new manager or aiming for executive leadership, this resource will equip you with the skills to thrive. Get your copy today at actexlearning.com and take the next step in your actuarial career.
Yeah, look, it was, I'll be straight up and say it was very daunting. I think I don't even think the thought crossed my mind in that first meeting about saying anything, because there was just such highbrow conversation around very complex topics. And I think particularly one of the first topics was around the Douglas decision, which is a very complex legal case. So I think for me, I very much remember that first meeting, because as I said, I was almost petrified to say anything, but it was about kind of turning up again and again and again. And after a few meetings, I start to get the feel for different people's personalities. And that's where you start building up your comfort levels. It becomes familiar being in these meetings around these different kinds of people. And then from there, it was just a bit of a platform. Volunteering gave me an in to have this initial interaction with these people. As I said, I was quite surprised at some of the appreciation for the work that I was doing. So it gave me a kind of starting off point to say, okay, well, let's move this, away from a group situation into a one-on-one. And that's where, I started catching up with coffees for people, start with someone that, maybe there was some kind of common ground. For instance, like I was working on the newsletter, there was the director at my old consulting firm, plus another member working on it. So that was the closest connection I had, leverage off that. And then kind of realized that, these people aren't so scary. They're people just like me.
Just people.
They have, as I say, great personalities. They have a history, they have a background, they have a story.
Yeah.
Learn about that story. I think that's what I found quite interesting about networking as well too, is it's, doesn't necessarily need to be something transactional where you're trying to, get a leg up in your career or anything like that. It's just about connection. And I think that's where once I realize I can kind of, I have an in for some of these with some of these people, what's the best way that I can form that connection?
And it sounds like you've done that in a really authentic way that's natural to you, not in a cheesy kind of way, but you've just kind of gone, feel like I've got something to do with this person, or we're working on something together, and then just really trying to find out about them. And I think sometimes we overthink what networking really is. We think it's got to be this big strategic exercise or this cheesy sort of uncomfortable type thing, but it doesn't have to be. And it sounds like you've really found your way of doing that in a way that feels comfortable for you, but also has really paid dividends for your career and given you access to maybe people and situations and opportunities that you might not have had at work in a day-to-day context.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would very much suggest to everyone to try and make it as organic as possible. Just play within, to start with maybe your comfort zone, but it's all about expanding your comfort zone slightly. You don't need to go from 0 to 100. With networking, I think you don't necessarily need to treat every interaction like business development, but at the same time, do what works for you. This has worked for me. I've been quite fortunate with it, but it's all about understanding, your ways of communicating with people. And then if there are people that you do want to connect with, hold a mirror up to them as well too, and understand, what their ways of communicating are as well too, and hopefully find some common ground. So you did touch on opportunities as well too. I think one of my favorite parts of it, because again, it's me probably being a bit oblivious in certain situations, was when I started my new job at a super fund. I was catching up with my now head of around various people, the who's who of the zoo type situation, and he mentioned one of the actuaries that was on the practice committee that was working in a different team, so not wearing a traditional actuarial hat, now working in strategy, but he had actually gone out of his way to talk to my head of and say, I've vouched for this, for showing my age, but I vouch for this kid. He's done some great work on the SIPC, and I'm it's good that he's joined us. And this was someone that I was surprised even knew my name, because at that stage I had been doing the newsletter, but in terms of the meetings I was probably still in that phase where more observing rather than contributing, but it was a great outworking of it, and it kind of made me feel very validated in my decision to move to the super fund, and now that actuary and strategy, I think we're quite close. We talk all the time around the different things, be it actuarial or super fund related, but also on a more personal level. We both have a love of watches, and a number of different things as well too. So it's been a great kind of platform to not only build my, let's call it, professional network, but it's also building friendships as well.
Yeah. And I think, Adam, that goes back to one of the things you said before about, they're just people. We can feel intimidated by more senior people or people who are more experienced than us, but we're all just people. And so if we can connect on that human level, there's things in common professionally and maybe personally as well, that adds to the richness of the experience.
Definitely.
Yeah, great. So, okay, so you've shared your sort of tips about you're never too junior to volunteer, and it's not about how much you know, it's about, being willing to show up and keep showing up and be generous with your time, and how that's really paid off for you in your career. And you've talked about how that's really helped your network as well, and your knowledge and connections across not just the profession, but the industry as well. And how that's helped you as you've changed jobs too. What else should actuaries consider when volunteering?
So I've touched on a lot about what volunteering has done for me, but I think going back to the crux of it, volunteering is a great chance to pay it forward. So it's no surprise to this interview that, I've sought guidance from many senior actuaries to help navigate my own career. And I really much, understand the value of that. So it definitely makes sense is paying it forward and, instilling that and passing that on to the next generation of actuaries. So that's why I've always gravitated towards roles within volunteering that do serve the next generation, particularly being on the education faculty and also an ambassador for the Actuaries Institute, talking to a lot of high school students and university students about becoming actuaries and what it means longer term. But that's kind of allowed me to, create these pathways for others, just as others have done for me. It's not just about the mentoring, it's about listening and sharing stories as well, and trying to lend a helping hand where I can. I think this type of networking has really fostered one of my favorite moments in all my volunteering. It was being at my alumni high school, talking to a mother and son at a high school careers fair about a career in actuarial. So taking them through, the entry requirements, the different universities, what to expect. It was quite a long conversation. I think it was definitely memorable in my head because, it was one of the students that seemed very interested in actuarial, which was miles ahead of me. Being in high school, I didn't even know what an actuary was. But I think where this story kind of hit its peak for me was not that night. It was the year after when I was at UNSW at a careers fair. So primarily for first and second year actuary students. And I saw the son. He came up to me and he said, thanks for all your advice last year. I've done my HSC, I've gone into actuarial, and I'm hoping to become an actuary. So,
oh wow,
it was a bit of a pinch me moment. It was like, oh, the volunteering that I'm actually doing is very much beyond me at this stage. I'm actually influencing decisions that other people are making, which
absolutely.
is a little bit scary, I'll be honest. But it's great to see that I've made a difference in someone's life, and he seemed very happy with his decision. So
that's amazing. What a great story. And really showcases what you've been able to do in your volunteering capacity, not just for you, but for the future of our profession as well. And for his career too. He may not have taken an actuarial career path if it wasn't for that conversation. So win, win, win. Amazing.
definitely, yeah. As I said, it's just one of those moments when it all kind of comes together. I think linking everything that I've talked about so far, my journey through volunteering has been very organic. It's if I think of it as an analogy, it's almost stumbling from one role to the next and just falling into different opportunities as they've presented themselves. So I think when you kind of have those moments as well too, it really solidifies the the time that you give to these volunteering activities. And it's a great feel-good story. So
yeah, amazing. Well, Adam, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today and some of your journey of volunteering to date. I look forward to seeing what you end up doing going forward because the journey's not over. But I'd like to finish the interview with one question, and it's this: what's your top tip for actuaries wanting to get involved in volunteering?
Yeah, it's I think my top tip would be start small and say yes. So
Start
that news,
small and say yes. Great, I love it.
definitely, because I think back to that newsletter that I started with. It didn't feel glamorous at the time, but gosh, it's opened doors. Volunteering doesn't have to be technical and high profile, as we've discussed. It's about being genuine. So look for those opportunities aligned with things that you're interested in. I mean, for me, it was all about inspiring the next generation. That's why I hopped on the education faculty and do the ambassador program. But also don't underestimate the impact of your contributions that you make. I think my favorite expression of all time would be, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how many people should take volunteering as well too. It's about take everything one bite at a time, and then you stack those contributions over time, and then sometimes you have those pinch me moments where everything all falls in place. So I'll be remiss as the chair of the Member Services Subcommittee to not mention that the Institute does offer a range of roles. They offer everything from writing articles to speaking at schools. And, I'd like to think that all the different volunteering opportunities are equally valued. But if you are unsure about, your journey as a volunteer in the actuarial space, I'm always in need of a pair of extra hands. So please reach out to me. More than happy for people to add me on LinkedIn and we can have a chat or set up coffee. And I can kind of hear your story and your experiences. So, but to kind of leave with a final note, I'd say that the community is very welcoming. I think everyone that I've worked with has been very appreciative, and it's a really great culture within the volunteer space with the actuaries community. I think there's so many people that want to do great things for not only actuaries and the profession, but also just globally and for everyone in society. So, the community is always welcoming more people, and there's always room for one more. So please, if you have the time and you're able to, I'd love to see as many new volunteers and new faces as I can.
Amazing. Thanks, Adam. Well, we will link your LinkedIn link in the show notes so that people can find you and catch up for a coffee and potentially connect with you for some volunteering activities to help their own careers, just like it's helped you. Adam, thanks so much for your time today. It's been fantastic having this conversation.
Thanks for having me, Julia. It's been an absolute privilege and honor to be part of the podcast, and congratulations again on 10,000 listeners.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam.
So there you have it. Real life stories and practical tips from a leader using their actuarial superpowers to make a difference in the world. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to get in touch, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your network. You'll find details from today's interview in the show notes below and on our website www.guardianactuarial.com.au. Until next time.